I want to be like closer, I think. Closer to God.
Closer to God, closer to my heart.
The higher the hair, the closer to Jesus.
Wait, what episode is this? Is this episode 6?
666.
Oh, for Halloween, welcome to 666. No, not yet. It's 3, 6.
6, 9.
I guess
I'm
that's
just
it.
kidding.
369. Isn't that a Disney Channel thing? Disney Channel 369. Anyway, welcome
No,
to
wait, it's
episode
a get
6.
low thing.
Oh, it is a Get Low thing, but it's also a Disney Channel thing.
Okay, which one came
369.
first?
Damn
Because
you
I'm pretty
fine.
sure.
I don't know.
Oh my God, what the fuck is his name?
Get low. Get low, get low. All right, welcome to episode 6. Here we go. Okay, so today, because yes, I'm keeping that as the intro. Today, we are going to we have like a little bit of a broad, all over the place thing to talk about today. A little bit about the frequency of fear, the frequency of trust, and transparency. Halloween is next week, so we needed to do a little bit of spooky. We got something to announce at the end, but first, let's get into our freak check. My lovely Victoria, on this fine fall day, how art thou feeling?
I am feeling pretty fabulous. I got my black turtleneck on.
Mm-mm.
Um, whipped out the top eyeliner. I'm like fully
Ooh.
in to fall. And
Ah,
just like that, I was actually flipping through an autumn and winter cookbook last night. And I'm like, all right, all right. I'm like mentally preparing my body for what it's about to be nourished by. And aside from that, I also pulled my neck or back or my
or
um
my or my
no, those
crack, you know what
those
I
are
mean?
doing great. Those are doing great. It's my neck, my back, and I got that. I lost my voice. I had that cough, and I feel like just coughing super hard has just like punctured my ribs. So I'm
Mm,
just constantly moving my body all serpentine like.
mhm.
Um, but I got back to weightlifting. I lifted some weights this morning.
Hell yeah.
You got to keep your body strong. And I think other than that, I'm just feeling like I'm happy it's Scorpio season, baby. How you
Whoo,
feeling,
here we
girl?
go. I'm feeling pretty good. Emotionally, mentally, I'm feeling really good. As Victoria mentioned recently, we record these episodes about a week and a half, 2 weeks early from when they premiere. Right? Is that the right word? We premiere our episodes. We're elegant.
We do.
Um, so this weekend, when we're recording it, was the eclipse just happened yesterday. And I feel like leading up and now coming out of the eclipse, I've just been really physically exhausted. Like, and it's been nice because not that it's nice to be exhausted, but it's been nice to come out of this funk that I've been in emotionally and mentally, the things that I've been going through that I've trickled here a little bit. And I've been feeling really good and motivated. Speaking of food, like Andrew and I have been eating like really hearty, nutritious meals that make my body feel good. And like emotionally, things have been fantastic. And I've been keeping a clear mind. So it's interesting to feel this exhaustion because I'm able to like have a clear mind and say, you know what? It's okay to rest right now. Like you don't have to feel guilty. Like you did do something. So there's this like balance of feeling motivated and wanting to do more, but knowing that like I'm doing it and that's also good enough. I don't have to, that summer energy is officially gone where I feel like I just need to keep going always. And now I get to just say,
Mhm.
it's dark early, go to sleep. So that's how I'm feeling. But I did just want to take one moment to talk about what is happening in the world because we haven't mentioned it on the previous 2 episodes because, like we said, we recorded prior to all of this happening in the Middle East. And I don't want to get into it. I don't feel educated enough on the full extent and history of it to truly speak to that in a public forum. But I do just want to say what I've noticed in my own heart and body is I do think it's important to be aware. I don't think being, blissfully ignorant is the good thing to do or the right thing to do. However, watching continuous videos and watching the news or reading these stories over and over is only hyperacting hyper making my nervous system hyperactive is what I'm meaning to say. And it's not allowing me to show up in my life for myself, for my community, for my job because of what's happening in weighing just from looking at it. Never mind what people are actually experiencing. I cannot even fathom. So, what I'm trying to do is stay aware, but my focus and attention is on how our government is responding because that's where I can take action. That's where my voice, my vote, my action matters because I can't be there and make a change in that way. So, I can only make a change where I can. So, just reminding yourself that yes, be knowledgeable, know what's happening, but you don't need to set yourself into this traumatized state from what we're watching. We have mirror neurons, they're called. It's why we're able to watch a movie and feel the same feelings that the character is going through. When we watch these videos over and over, our body responds as if we were there to some extent, of course. So just being mindful of what you're intaking right now and knowing that, yes, we should be paying attention and taking action, but where can you take action? Don't overload yourself. That's all I wanted to say about that.
Thank you, Tara. I think it's really also important not to ignore what's going on. And, um, it really does play on how we amplify fear by experiencing empathy in a way where it's not serving anyone because it just,
Mhm.
like you said, mirrors what's happening. And yeah, I'm so sick of the division. I'm so sick of witnessing the division.
Mhm. And of
Here for the
course, we're
unity.
always yes, and we're always tracking on the right path. So I do find it very interesting that a lot of what's happening stems from religious war. And we did just put out an episode about resentment that really focused on religion. And we had this whole conversation of about that. And then for it to be followed up the next weekend with what happened, we're tracking right along. And I think we're all it's a conscious evolvement. And I think it has a lot to what we're talking about today in fear, transparency, and truth. We're all evolving at our own pace, but the earth, humanity, consciousness is also evolving. And we're also being faced as a collective with a lot of these same frequencies, right? It may not manifest in the same like war, but maybe it manifests in your relationship. But we're all facing these same energies that are bubbling up, compiling, coming down, all of that. So just recognizing that there is unity in that. And we don't need to find the unity in fear. We just need to find the unity in what do we have in common, even if that is just what we're going through right now.
Whew, deep breaths.
Okay. I don't want to put a pin in it like it means nothing, but I want to put a pin in that and pivot into what we're talking about today because it is related.
It is, and I would sort of like to start us off with this phrase I hear all the time and it drives me freaking crazy. So I'm like, let's talk about it. I like this person. Hold on. I want to back up and just say we talk about now religion, politics. I just don't think we talk about sex enough. So that might have to be the episode after this one. Just throwing it out
Oh,
there, right? If we're going to
coming
like
back.
tackle all those things
I mean, all right.
and then drugs and rock and roll, right? Like it just the natural
Okay,
segue
beautiful. Thank you for figuring out the rest of our season. We'll all see you there. Thank you for joining us.
and hormones. Um yeah. But okay, the phrase I like this person because they tell it like it is.
Hmm.
How many times have you heard that in, like, the past 6, 7 years? "I like this politician because they tell it like it is." And my, like, initial reaction, like, if Tara and I were to read you energetically for 5 seconds and tell you like it is, you would not like us because we are not feeding your ego, we're not feeding
Mhm.
this old belief system, and in this copy and paste society we live in, the ability to think for yourself in times where there's such strong beliefs and information being presented to you, like facts, I'm here to remind you of the power of your own mind to create your own reality and to not subscribe to what is being perpetuated.
Mm. And can I
I'm
just
using my hand
say
a lot today. I'm feeling
you are,
feisty.
girl. And can I just say, biased opinion, because this is through my own eyes, of course, but how many times do they say, I like that politician because they tell it how it is, but what they're telling is fear narrative that aligns with your fear? I have never heard a politician say, we're seeing, all this turmoil in our own country and like talking about how we're going to fix this. And someone go, yeah, tell it like it is. No, no, because they're thinking about their own pocket because that's what we've been programmed to do. How do I survive? I can't help others because I could barely help myself because we're stuck in this fear narrative. And that's the reason, that's the only time you're like, yeah, tell it like it is, when they're feeding your ego or feeding the narrative that you have in your own head. But usually telling it like it is usually the pivot point. When you feel that someone's being blunt, right? All my life, you're so blunt, you're so blunt, you're so telling it like it is. Yeah, it feels that way because it's jarring to what's already there or being said or whatever. So wake up. Now you
I
got me
love
feisty. I'm like,
I know. Well, this is very scorpionic, right? Because I'm a Scorpio sun, Tara's a Scorpio rising, and I just feel like, and especially Scorpio being in Mercury, I think at this point it is. And I know it just went into Mars. Like it is blunt, the blunt truth
mm.
that you can't hide from any longer.
And
All right. I
speaking of
think
planets, related to that too, and I know nothing of this. I always take like little, like, I got like one little coin of someone's entire speech, but Pluto is the planet of transparency. And right now it's in like a stationary situation, whatever that truly means. So I think that also goes along with this concept that's been feeding in for us of just telling it how it is, given the actual reality, right? Like I know we create our own reality, but what are you actually experiencing? Not what's the narrative in your head or someone else telling you. It's all very transparent. Like, what is it actually? Stop self-sabotaging and sabotaging others with this fear narrative.
well, what's so funny about Pluto is yeah, transparency for sure, but transformation, and you can't experience transformation without transparency. So
Mm-hmm. Be that little like caterpillar. You get complete goo, transparent. You have nothing. And then pow, you break out.
well, I'm like, we haven't talked about Andrew yet. May I go ahead and talk about my latest love?
Oh, yeah.
Actually, do I wanna go here right now?
That's why
I'm
I was
like all
like,
fire I'm all my
oh.
blood's already boiling. But I think when it comes to starting to date someone new, like, how much truth is too much truth at the beginning and, like, how much is preferred? So I've been reflecting a
Mm.
lot on this, right? Because if you meet someone and it's so rare these days to, like, and actually, is that a limited belief? I don't know, but then again, I live in Portland, so it is rare. So to meet a man where I'm like, "Oh, I actually could see myself dating you. I could see some sort of future. I could see how we could work together as a team and amplify each other's potential and support each other along the way and love each other, and it could be so fun, but also we're going to choose each other to act out whatever it is that we need to resolve within ourselves. So like we may as well have fun while doing it." Um but it just has me thinking a lot about truth. And when you're starting to learn someone, I think the foundation that you're building with someone is like hardcore trust, right?
Mhm.
And trust and truth are like hand in hand for better or worse. I feel like honesty and transparency are sort of synonyms in a way. And it's almost like transparency is the act of being honest. And
Mm.
you have to really know your audience. You have to know who you're sharing your truth with. You have to feel comfortable and confident that you can be vulnerable sharing your truth and it's going to be received. And I think this really ties into what you've talked about, Tara, is like if you're in a receptive mode and you're really receiving from your partner, your friend, whatever, be fully in receptive mode. If you're giving, fully be in the giving mode. And so I think the next level is when you're sharing your truth with someone. I mean, I think we've kind of like conceptualized it in terms of it being physical, right? But I think the whole idea of sharing your heart and your mind, and I'd really like to see more couples dig into this sooner in their relationships instead of waiting a year in and being like, oh, everything just bubbled to the surface. What are we going to do with it now? Or, oh my God. Yeah, end statement. I don't know what else I wanna say about this right now. I'm getting all, like, flustered and fired up.
Well, I definitely agree with you that all types of relationship, romantic or not, like, are built on trust. And something that you like kind of dropped a seed on is like feeling that it's safe enough to be vulnerable and like oh, that's what I wanted to touch on when you were like at the beginning like being truthful, but what is too much to like
Mhm.
give all your truth. And that is such a mirror for me when Andrew and I started our relationship. Yes, I'm talking about him because you said I wasn't. But but I was so independent and like this is who I am and like if you don't like me, like fuck you, like you better like everything that you're getting right now. And with that came I'm going to shove everything I am and have been down your throat. And it was not healthy for either of us because what that was actually for me was such a fear of being rejected that I just like immediately shoved everything down his throat and was like, "Well, what now? What are you going to do about it now? Before I wait a year and find out you don't like these things about me." Um and it was a way for me to like also finally feel like I'm ready to be seen in all parts of me even though I didn't know what those parts were. So there was a lot of like, this is how many people I slept with. Get used to it. And I'm this kind of and like, what the fuck, girl? Like, what? That's not how you start a relationship. Like, you clearly were off your rocker. And in turn, it actually hindered our trust in the beginning because I overshared about my past because I was like, you need to accept me for who I am. And then he was like, well, are you going to be that person? Because that person was not in a relationship. That person was not communicating properly, you know? So it is something to be mindful of is how much, not that you're hiding yourself at all, don't do that, but how much is this person ready to process? If I give you a little piece of me and I'm like, chew on that, see how you feel about that, okay? And then I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna give you the next piece. Because if I give you everything all at once at the very beginning, it becomes overwhelming. And it's not that they don't like you or they don't like certain parts of you, but it's just freaking overwhelming. And especially because relationships force you to grow and change. So to feed them every little piece of you that don't even apply to you anymore is kind of just a little ridiculous. So in that case, for me, I feel letting truth rise on its own. Like, so when a situation comes up that's like, actually, that reminds me that this happened in my past. So I'm going to perceive it this way or react this way. That's where we start to share our truth, not situationally. Like you were saying, like situational leadership, very similar. situational honesty. Not saying that we're not honest all times. We're not speaking our truth all times, but I have a many a truths. We got 3 seasons of truth here. I don't need to drop that on somebody in one day, you know what I mean? It's been a whole calendar year. So it's like dropping the crumbs, you know?
I just imagine Andrew, like, binge listening one day and, like, his nervous system short circuiting, like, "Oh my god," but he lives with you, he's used to it.
Yeah. Well, that's why he still hasn't gotten to it because he's like, "Girl, you tell me before you record and you tell me after you record. Why do I gotta listen?" And I'm like, "Facts. Because I want you to."
You hear that, Andrew? You hear that?
Probably not.
Well, okay, here's the freaking fact of the matter is if you haven't sat with yourself and figured out what your truth is, like, how are you ever gonna be able to share it, let alone have the courage to begin to share it? And,
Yes.
it has, this whole new relationship, and I love me some NRE, some new relationship energy. I love to be in love, but I'm very particular with who I experience this emotion with, and to experience it in, like, very healthy, dosed out, just spurts of connection, I think has served my nervous system well in getting to know
Mhm.
this person as well as sharing myself. So I think that's a really good approach, Tara, to like piecemeal the truth about yourself. But I think sharing your truth at the beginning of a relationship, I think it comes down to like, what are your goals? What are your expectations? What are your deal breakers? Like all the things that go into like how you think you are in this very moment. And I would love to see more of us approach life that way
Mhm.
in being in the moment and telling the story from here's how I feel right now. And that's why I love doing the freak check at the beginning because it's like this is our vibe right here right now.
Mhm.
It's great to talk about the past and to reminisce and to tune into those past emotions and feelings, especially when you're reflecting back and seeing how much you've grown. And I feel like I'm at this point in my evolution where I'm getting to witness myself respond in just a healthier, more mature, loving, compassionate way. So I enjoy showing up this way. And I know that in the
Yay.
the last episode I was like on one, but I feel like it's really settled and at this like beautiful, delicious simmer.
Mm. Yes, girl. Hell yeah. And something that you said that encompasses we use this phrase all the time, getting to know someone. It is getting to know them. It's not read my biography in one day, right? It's getting to know someone and speaking your truth when your truth arises. So if you're on the first date and you start talking about expectations, that's when you tell your truth. And you're like, my expectation is marriage or not marriage or monogamy or polyamorous, or whatever your expectations are as far as like romance, right? But even in a job, anything like that, speaking your truth right then. Then maybe a little bit later, you start talking about past relationships, you speak your truth then. It's about getting to know that person always because you're always changing. And if you're not, right, Andrew and I, what we just went through was a lot of coming into the space of transparency and truth. And what have we really been feeling? And what has really been like in the nooks and crannies of our relationship that maybe we had empathy for each other that we didn't bring up because, yes, it's my truth, but I love you. And like, is it really worth it? Your truth is always freaking worth it. Win win situation. You tell the truth and something changes. You tell the truth and they leave and you find someone better. Not saying that in the case of Andrew and I, but that's really what it is. New relationships, old relationships, if you're not telling your truth, resentment builds. That's what we talked about in the last episode. So when your truth rises, take a moment, like Victoria said, be in the giving space. But that requires making sure that the person receiving is ready to be in the receiving space. So that may be like, hey, I have some things that I want to talk to you about. Are you ready for that? Is now a good time? And like, yeah, everyone hates the, hey, we need to talk. Everyone hates that. But it's a lot better than, like, kicking in the door and being like, "Well, guess what, motherfucker?" You know what I mean? Like, give
You
them
up? I'm just kidding.
literally, though, like, give them a second to be like, no, now's not a good time. I'm at work. I'm dealing with some other shit personally. I just fucking didn't eat today or didn't sleep today. Check in with that person to make sure they're ready to receive.
I mean, it's one of the most beautiful acts of boundary setting that we're having to learn the hard way, like through
Mhm.
trial and error, but here we are doing it, and it gets easier. And I think the more you live in that way, then you meet people who mirror that back to you and are able to hold space for you intentionally, and it's quite lovely, and it makes me love relationships again.
Mhm. It's that boundary is so important because we think about when we're in that heightened state of emotion or thought where we're just like, this is my truth and this is how I'm feeling. Yes, that's the time to talk about it. But also, is it going to be received? Think about the amount of times that even your best friend or your sibling calls you and they're like, I need you right now. And they're just like dumping it on you emotionally and you want to be there for them, but you're barely even hearing what they're saying because you're in the middle of five other things, right? How overwhelming that becomes for you, and then you can't show up properly for the person you want to. So when you're
Mhm.
having these really challenging or just honest conversation, right? Just here's what it is. It's making sure that person's in the space of receiving and that you're focusing on yourself as the giver and you're focusing on them as the receiver to say, okay, how can they best receive my words? Do I ain't gonna lie. Sometimes you need a little harsh tone. Sometimes somebody's got to be like a little bitch
Terrible.
slapped. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I mean, like, I'm not saying I teach my kids the four T's of communication: timing, tone, truth, and technique. I'm all about doing it right. But if I tell someone, teaching or in my romantic relationship, if I tell someone over and over and over and over, oh, okay, at the fifth time, I'm gonna be like, here's the fire under your ass, bitch, because this is a problem. Can't be screaming at snack time. Get it together. You know what I mean? So I think recognizing how is that person going to receive it? If they're in a pity party, they're not receiving anything. Whip them out of that pity party. This ain't about pitying you. This ain't about saying you're a bad person. This is about saying how I feel in the situation. This is about saying my truth. I'm being transparent. This is how I feel. It ain't about you being sad for yourself. Sorry. Now I'm heated up.
Well, okay, and it's also not necessarily about, like, whipping them out of that state of being, because I think the hardest part about this whole process is sometimes it takes time apart to let your blood simmer down,
Yes.
and I feel like conversations are just always better had when it's not in the heat of the moment, of course, but I think having time to
Yes. Yes.
reflect and to process and integrate is so vital, and I think that's where trust comes in, and it's kind of a little bitch because you have to trust the timing of things,
Hmm.
and it's sort of, I almost feel like you have to learn how to self-soothe yourself through trusting, and I've really sat with this a lot because I'm like, how much am I denying how terrible I feel and just saying I'm trusting the process, I'm trusting divine timing. Really, I feel like shit, and I wish I had someone to support me through this. I wish my partner could talk to
Hmm.
me right now and we could resolve this. It's not
Okay,
so
yes,
easy.
you're
Yeah.
right. You're right. And I know in the last episode I said that sometimes when I'm in my feelings, I'm like, now I have to fucking talk about it. But you're so right. It's not clear. It's not clear what I actually want. They don't get to hear clearly because I'm just like coming in a little too hot. So you're right. Take that time to reflect. But I mean, I do feel that sometimes there's that line that you can ride between assertive and aggressive where you're not like yelling at them, but you're still like firm.
Tara, we ride that line
I ride
often.
that line so hard as a teacher, as a partner. Like, I'm just like, because there's times to just be like, hey, this really bothered me and this is what I need. And then there's times where I'm just like, listen, this is unacceptable. Like, this hurts too much. And I've asked many times, right? So it's not like I'm yelling at you. I'm not saying you're bad, but it's just like, here's my line. I've made it. I've made it to the line. And like you said, maybe it's sometimes cooling off, but maybe it's sometimes taking a step away from that relationship, that job, that situationship to say, I've made it to my line and I've communicated and had open and honest conversation. And for whatever reason, it's not being heard, reciprocated, respected, whatever is on the other side, that I just got to go, all right, here's my line and I'm not crossing it. And if you can't meet me, then we got to adjust something here because right, and there's that firm like fire under the ass is I've done enough and I've communicated enough and I've been honest enough and you're not. So if you don't meet me halfway, whether it's whatever the situation, then we got to figure something out. And that is the harsh truth, the transparency of it, what it really is in a new relationship or an old. This is the line. Meet me there.
Make it known that you have the courage to walk away, but you also have the courage to stay there and work it out. And it's ultimately up to you which direction you wanna choose.
Mhm.
And that's the weird, cool thing about relationships is we get to choose who we act out these whatever programming, trauma, up leveling, just your evolution, just the basic human evolution, no big deal.
Casual,
Through your
casual.
heart, through your a lot of parts of your body.
Mhm.
So,
And I think getting support for that, whether it be like your own therapist, couples counseling, yoga, meditation, whatever it is that supports you to regulate yourself and come to your truth. Hi, Bippy. Thank you for joining us. He has a truth. Um, then, then you're capable of saying like, okay, I've found my place. Okay, guys, this is Bippy, aka Little Man. If you're not watching, my cat is currently right in front of the microphone and the camera because he needs constant attention. Um, okay, sir. But clearly, he's telling me you've said enough. So that's my piece on that.
hold on, I wanna kind of maybe cough.
Hold on, I kind of want to maybe cough.
Well, I think there's, like, a huge risk to being honest, and I think
Mm-hmm.
acknowledging the risk of being vulnerable, of facing rejection, shame, guilt, that risk is worth taking
Yes.
always.
Win-win.
Win-win.
At in the long term, it is a win-win. So the discomfort of being honest is worth your time and effort. And that ropes us right back around to that fear frequency because if you're not saying your truth because you're fearful that the person will leave, that you'll lose your job, whatever the case may be, you're not actually living your truth. You're not following your heart. When I'm trying to make a decision, I always stop and pause and say, is this decision coming from fear because I'm scared of what's going to happen or whatever? Or is this coming from a place of love, love for myself, my partner, my community? That's the choice we always want to go to. And honesty is always coming from the heart, it's always coming from there. Even if that honesty is, I'm scared and I don't know what to do. It's okay to have fear, but we're not choosing out of fear. We're not living that fear mindset. We're accepting and seeing the shadow and saying, "Fuck, that's scary and that's hard, but I don't need to choose from that. I get to make a conscious choice in my relationship or whatever to choose honesty and trust."
Well, we love cultivating deep relationships, and I think the whole point of being transparent and having open, honest communication with your partner, your friend, your colleague, well, to some degree, is all because you wanna establish trust, and
Mhm.
I think the more you sit in your truth and you embody your truth, um, it encourages others to do the same, and it feels really good. I think your energy is unable to lie, right? Like, it just there's
Mhm.
no denying how good it feels to be in the presence of someone who just sits in their authenticity and knows how to express themselves with compassion and love. And I think if we had more thoughtful processes brought to our relationship dynamics, the world would be such a different place. So I encourage you to start trying, whether it be with your friend, lover, partner, situationship, grandma, cat. I think I got all the essentials there. It just yeah, I think this is one way that you can contribute to society, to human consciousness, the collective,
Mhm.
and it's a win-win.
And may I offer, I mentioned and I like rattled them off, but really, if you're trying to have these open and honest conversations with anyone, really honing in with the four T's of communication is so crucial to being received properly. So I just want to say them one more time. So we got timing, so that means location, time of day, what emotional and mental space that they're in. Like, is this a good time for you to dive into it and for them to dive into it? Um, Tone of voice, that's pretty obvious. Um, Technique, right? We've talked about technique before. Don't use always, never. Those words are the worst. And if you catch yourself, just say it.
Even
Like I
wait, you
do it all.
just said always earlier.
See?
But
It's so hard not
always.
to. But I'll like say it to Angela, I'll be like, "You always," or "You never," and then I immediately stop and I'm
Totally.
like, "Nope,
Yeah.
that's not true. Sometimes it feels like this." Sometimes I even say, "Often it feels like this," or "Most of the time it feels like this," but it's not always or never. We're not blaming anyone. We're using those I statements, right? That's the technique. And then the last one is truth. And when I teach my kids truth, it's not just, is it your truth, but is it coming from a good place? And are you ready to say it respectfully? Are you
Mm.
ready to say, here's my truth respectfully? When Andrew and I just had a really big, transparent conversation about those nooks and crannies, I kept telling him, I'm nervous. I cannot tell you my truth in a way that's not going to be harmful to you because of my feelings, because of like the core root of it all, right? I said, and I don't want it to be like that. And even just saying that statement, he was able to pause and say, okay, I'm going to try not to take it personally. It's from your perspective. Even just saying to him, like, I'm going to have a hard time saying my truth without it feeling like a personal attack to you, which it's not. It's just saying how I feel about the situation. Even just stating that truth in itself, he was able to say, okay, right now I am ready to hear that. And when he asked me, how come we've never talked like this or like, and I was like, because we weren't ready. Neither of us were ready to actually hear each other in full transparency about these specific issues and topics. So being truthful in what you're capable of as the giver itself and say, I'm feeling really heated right now. And maybe it's not the time to talk about it. Or this is as cool as I'm going to get myself. So I'm going to try. Like just being transparent in the way you're giving that information as well.
That is some top tier treatment.
TTT. But I do want to circle back because it is my favorite time of the year. It is spooky season. Oh,
Spooky season.
yes, spooky season is my favorite. And, you know, Victoria and I were talking about like, I love to be spooked. I love being scared. I love spooky movies, haunted houses, whether it be like a fake one or a real one, like, doesn't matter. The only thing I don't like is being chased, but that's a whole nother story. But we talked about what it means to like why I feel such joy from being scared in that
My little freak. I love it.
way. But, you know, we were talking about what it means to be in the relationship or the frequency of fear. So hold on, before I even get into that, Victoria, how do you want to say your piece on spooky things?
Well, I think people who like hold on, not freaky. What am I talking
Could be a little
You
freaky.
know where my mind is. Well, I think people who are naturally drawn to spooky and suspenseful things are able to handle the sense of controlled fear better than people who kind of veer away from it. And I am someone who is like terrified of my own shadow. I saw spirits and ghosts and like lots of wild things growing up in Pennsylvania, and I felt like I had to kind of process it on my own. It probably wasn't until I
Mhm.
got older that I started to share stories, and then, every other kid's house is haunted in Pennsylvania, so it was sort of like a
Facts.
right? But I think the idea of having the sense of controlled fear, kinda creates this illusion that it doesn't affect your nervous system in the same way, and I think I'm very cognizant of how much watching scary things just leaves an imprint in my memory because I'm a very visual person, and so I'm able to replay back certain events, and, it kinda puts me in this loop, and I don't like it. It totally eats away at me. It lowers my vibe beyond ways that, like, I don't even, like, wanna go there, right? And I think,
Mhm.
um it's beautiful to witness you, Tara, get so excited about, like, scary shit, and I feel like I just live vicariously through you because I'm like, I don't want the, like, feeling of suspense, but, like, I just like your excitement around it.
And I didn't really think about it in that way, like of controlled fear until you brought it up because I grew up with a spiritual mom, so that was like our life and I wanted to explore it more. Like my mom was like, "Oh, here's like the base, like you'll see like your grandma and your grandpa." And I'm like, "I want to see some shit." And I think it's because I wanted to know the truth. Like, that's why I feel like for
Mhm.
me, these two frequencies are so linked because I was in a safe enough place to explore fear of the unknown, to explore fear of these energetic beings. And it didn't always go well, but I knew that I could be safe because of the skills my mom taught me, because I had my mother, because my house was safe. So I got the adrenaline rush of like, coming really close to like adrenaline rush is usually when you're like near death experience, right? Not saying I've ever had any of those, but it felt close to death, right? A lot of that exploration was with spirits. It felt so close to like the darkness, the unknown, that fear space, but I knew anytime I got scared, I can go back and I'm protected. So it allowed me to navigate this energetic world and try to find the truth in what it is. Like why is my mom
Mm.
saying that we're powerful, but there's also these other things? And how come this one's good and this one isn't? And I was able to kind of like play in this field of fear because I knew I was safe enough to do that.
Girl, that's like the secret sauce right there is to learn how to operate from a place of such deep knowing, of trust that you are protected at all times. You get to
Hmm.
experience so much cool shit because of that. And you've really kind of played on the whole spectrum of things. So yes, the ghosts and the whatever on one end, but then also the angelic realm
Yeah.
and light language. And I mean, not saying one's on the other side of the spectrum. I think
Right.
it's very nonlinear, such as
Hmm.
time. But that you so I'm like, oh yeah, I feel that so deeply.
But yeah, it's made me wanna explore a lot. Like, I really was an adrenaline junkie growing up, like, roller coasters are my favorite, like, anything that got my heart pumping because I knew I was safe, and I think that also plays into everything we were just talking about is being able to be in controlled fear of, "I'm not sure how this person's gonna respond, but I trust that this is right for myself and ultimately right for the situation that we're in." Because if I'm in my truth, then we can both figure out if this is working or what needs to shift. So it's this allowing yourself to step into fear in a controlled way, not in the way where we're overactivating our nervous system because we're flooding it constantly with the narratives we see on news and other things like that. But just like, you know what, I'm going to watch a spooky movie tonight, or I'm going to do a little like whatever haunted house or haunted corn maze or shit like that. Which hold up, they chase you, so I don't do that kind of shit. I don't do the haunted corn maze. I don't like being chased.
Or you have to
Maybe in a
run. No, thank you.
Maybe in a past life, I got chased or something because even with my siblings, like, we'd be, like, fighting, we'd be doing shit, and as soon as they started chasing me, my back was against the wall, and I was like, "I give up. Nope. My back. Nope. My back." Like, that was the only thing I'm fearful of. But, that ketchup, birds, I don't know, weird fears, but anyway, um
Ketchup?
for a really long time, and I don't know why.
Wait, what?
I know. I think it might be because my oldest brother and my younger sister put ketchup on everything, an excessive amount. And I have a texture problem, and I was just like, "Why are you putting ketchup on your
Oh.
pancakes? This ain't right. Why you not using
Ew.
sauce? Why you using ketchup? I don't like this." Girl, no offense out there, no offense siblings, but gross. Um, anyway, so that's why spooky season is my favorite because I get to indulge it in a fun comedic way with like spooky decorations and like, watching spooky movies. But it's also important to be mindful that around Halloween, the veil is thin. It is
Mm.
transparent, my friends. And if you are not being cognizant of what you're allowing into your field, you can get into some things that aren't great. And even when I was exploring through this fear, I always made sure that I was protected first and foremost. For me, like we've talked about the bubble of white light, we've talked about like that energetic bubble of yours. My mom's really big on Halloween, the thinnest night, All Saints Day, the Day of the Dead, those like really that potent area. Having something covering your crown chakra, like just a hat, a hood, just a whatever, a veil, anything to just like an extra physical barrier is what I do on the nights, especially if I'm exploring, because it is the time where we're able to reach that realm of spirits. And for anyone who's been with us long enough, Victoria had a beautiful um, definition of spirit separate from soul, right? It's the spirit that's still the soul that's still linked to the
Mm.
memory and love of the physical being that was on earth. So those spirits who've just passed, it's a beautiful time to connect with them. It's a beautiful time to set an altar or say a prayer or just take a moment of intention to say thank you to my lineage and those who've passed before, because the veil is so
Wait, Tara,
small.
will you tell the people what you mean by the veil is thin? Just
Yes.
for those who aren't familiar with that term?
So understanding that we're on like many planes of existence, many different frequency levels, realities, dimensions, matrix, whatever it is you want to label it. We're on many different grids, and right now physically we're in this third dimension, the fourth dimension, right? That extra layer above us, the fifth dimension, six and beyond, right? So think about as if we're sandwiched on top of each other, and the bread in between us and those in the angelic and spiritual realms and energetic realms, because it doesn't need to just be spirits or angels, anything up there. That bread is like, it's less than a fucking wafer. It's less than a wrap, bro. It's like you could see through that bread. That bread is holy. Oh, holy. But it's like portals are opening for them to be able to contact you and be on the physical realm instead of us just going internally into our own body and heightening our frequency. They're able to drop down into where we're at. So being mindful of that.
And it can be any which kind of entity because it's a free
Absolutely.
will universe. And I think one other important thing to note is around this season, especially, part of the law of this universe is that entities who plan to inflict any type of power control, fear based tactics have to let you know in some way. And it's
Mhm.
often done through programming, through movies, television, music. You've seen it, you've experienced it your entire life. And when you start to see it for what it is, that in order for them to act out whatever tactic they have to show us. And
Mhm.
that's why I don't like to expose myself to a lot of movies and just anything that brings up that sense of fear for me because I know how much I amplify that vibration.
Mhm.
And it's not, I think, a good impact or contribution to the collective for me to be in that state of being.
Mhm.
But I think that's why I love witnessing what you experienced, Tara, because it's just so different from the way that I think I am holding that frequency.
Right. And I think it also, because a practice of mine is, yes, they need to show you what they want to do, but also
Mhm.
from my understanding and what I've experienced is you need to let it in. Right? Whether that means that your bubble is gone, you say, "Yes, please tell me who you are. Yes, come in. Who, like, what do you want to do? What do you want to say?" Or it's almost like second nature for me when I'm watching these or experiencing these things to have my own protection up. So that way, when I'm watching it, it's not actually, and I'm sure to some capacity it is, right? I'm not perfect. But for the most part, it's got to go through my filter first in order for it to like tap into my frequency and shift my frequency. Yes, I have mirror neurons and I'll feel that spook, but I can allow it to exist outside myself as opposed to embodying that and then vibrating it out. So when it comes to spooky season, everybody be out here trying to be like, who's here? Who's in this house? Or, girl, I would never touch a Ouija board, but if any of you out there do, that's why it's so fucking important to not let them in. If you're doing things like the Ouija board, the biggest issue that people have is they get spooked, they leave it, they run away. They don't say goodbye. They don't close them out. They don't say the door is closed. You leave that open for them. It's similar when you start having things around your house happen, or you're somewhere where you feel like things are watching you or you're feeling spooked. The first thing I do is I'm like, boom, bubble up. And then I'm like, okay, guides, you're the doorkeeper. You're the gatekeeper. Don't let anybody in who's not in a frequency that's going to align with me. And then I'll ask the question, who are you? Why are you here? Blah, 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 blah. Because I know if I'm getting an answer, it's because my guides were like, she's good to go. He's good. They're good to go. Let them in. They
Mhm.
got something to say.
Mhm.
That's fine. Right. So when you're exploring spooky season, whether it be a spooky movie, doing your own version of connecting because the veil is thin, the bread is holy. I had to. Or, anything like that. It's about setting that intention first that we're only here for exploration, for entertainment, for an adrenaline kick, but we ain't here to program ourselves and to contact and interact with anything that is not for our highest good and for our highest potential. Play
Uh,
smart.
Actually, the word entertainment, when you break it down and you look at the Latin root, it basically translates to, like, "enter me." Like, it is
Oh,
entertainment is,
interesting.
like, because it, like, impacts you on such a cellular level.
Hmm.
I'm like, I'm not gonna go into Latin definitions, don't worry, guys.
Well, I'm
But
glad you
maybe
said
next
that
episode
because
once I look it up.
yeah, but also, like, being mindful of that because I mean, I never use the word "this is for entertainment," right? But I was using that to explain it, but now that I know that, I ain't gonna use that word because words are frequency, and that's what you're putting out. If you're saying this is for entertainment, if that's what it really means, then I gotta find a different word. This is for
Well, it could
speculating. I
I
don't
mean,
know.
it could be of the highest vibration, but I think when we're looking at the entertainment industry, they are notorious
Yes, yes.
for entering in whatever agenda they have. Yeah, so I think entertainment's still okay to use as
Okay.
long as you're doing the one programming or
Mhm.
you're the one doing the programming.
You're the programmer. Yes. Women in STEM. But
Well, equal pay.
oh, I digress.
So I pulled a card.
Mhm.
The 8
Ooh.
of Thunders. Notice how she's transparent?
Yes.
Could I just read you a little bit of
Please,
what
please.
and it jumped out so aggressively that I was like, "Alright, thanks, you made it real easy for me." "I release barriers from my mind and remember my magic.
Mm.
One of the greatest forms of power available to us is the freedom of our mind. The wild, connected freedom you see in this card is our natural state. The vibrating, energetic thunderbolts, the aurora borealis, our plant friends, and the cosmos all support our freedom because it is equally theirs. In our harmony, we contribute to the ecological and energetic harmony around us. We flourish and grow when we remember that we are already perfectly connected to the whole and perfectly receptive to clarity.
Mm,
I
hell
mean, there's
yeah.
so much this is like, it couldn't be closer. Okay, two more lines because this is so good. The figure's transparency reminds us of how actually, I don't know how to say this word.
What?
Let's normalize that this is still a thing at age 30 something. Illusory. It's Illusory.
Wait, but I'm dyslexic. You can't spell shit to me like that. Illusionary?
No, because there's no SION.
Oh,
So, okay, we could just why don't I just say illusionary?
sure.
The figure's transparency reminds us how illusionary this physical realm can be. We are creators, dreamers. We can mold our lives and this world into exactly we want them to be. Sorry. I know, I'm like, "Are we done?"
Well, now you want me now I wanna pull a card.
Stay wild, my child. Nothing can hold you back. You are birthed for magic. You are forever magic. Your
Mm.
mind is powerful. Even the oldest of patterns can be retrained out. Choose new beginnings. Choose freedom.
Ooh! Ooh! Hell yeah, but now I wanna pull a card.
Pull it.
Okay. What do you got for us?
I
No.
just want to add real quick that was from the Gentle Tarot. Heal yourself, heal the earth.
Oh! Also on this card, they're transparent as well.
Yes.
It's cannabis detachment. Can you even see that?
Of course.
Like they don't know me, but detachment. I feel like that is related to the concept that of all three we were talking about: transparency, truth, and fear, right? We're detaching from that fear mindset so we can speak our truth and be in full transparency. Bah!
Oh, have you ever pictured what the energy of cannabis looks like? Because I'd love to share real quick what my energetic kind of makeup is of
Oh,
it because I
okay.
I think it plays into the idea of detachment because I think that cannabis can help to ground you to earth if you're feeling ultra head in the stars, head in the cosmos, having a hard time getting anchored down. But the energy feels kind of masculine to me, which I don't want to bring gender into it, but I think it feels masculine in a way that I think it's a very protective plant. I think it is very hardy and has to, I think, kind of exist in this like gooey, mm, I can't think of the word I wanna it just it feels very molasses-like.
Ooh.
But I also kinda picture it as, like, a '90s kid wearing JNCO jeans with greasy hair. Like, if I were to put, like, a personality or a persona to cannabis but also I picture, like, obviously cannabis is the female plant, so I also think sparkly fairy goddess who's
So a little
sexy
bit of
and
everything.
sultry. Yeah, I mean, let's disregard the JNCO jeans comment, but
Oh my god. But yeah, I
actually,
feel like
wait, speaking of costumes or looking like a clown, what are you gonna be for Halloween?
okay, so I think Andrew and I just decided that we're gonna we're gonna do some SpongeBob characters because that's
Classic,
very on
yes.
brand for us.
Yep.
So he's gonna be Doodlebop.
I'm like, I don't know
I know you don't. I was like, you don't know
anything
shit,
else.
girl. And I was thinking of being Plankton's wife, the computer.
Cute.
Getting or hold on, wait, let me see if I can get this right. And no one's here to tell me if I got it right, but Schmitty Werben Jaegerman Jensen. He was number one. That I think is who I'm going to be. It's just hard to say. But anyway, we got a Halloween coming up. So allow yourself to explore controlled fear. However, explore controlled I'm like, how do I loop these together? These are strands on the same web, but like we are kind of a little bit all over the place to be transparent. You know what I mean? Is there a way to wrap us up before we drop our announcement?
I mean, we're all over the place and I ain't sorry about it. Hope you've enjoyed.
Sorry, ain't sorry. All we'll say is right now is a really, really big time for you to be transparent. Transparent in the narratives you tell yourself, where you're self-sabotaging, in the transparency and how you're feeling in these situations so you can realign. Eclipse season is massive new beginnings and energy moving. So be transparent into what is actually happening in your reality so you can actually change it. And you do that by telling the truth to others and
But
living your
first
truth.
telling the truth to yourself. Quit lying to
Yes.
yourself, baby.
Yes, that's the hardest part. That is the hardest part. So, can we tell them our announcement that I'm very
Yes,
excited about? Okay,
yes.
okay, okay. So, as you just heard, I love spooky season. And as you know, we be living out here sometimes in a spooky life. So, we are going to drop a bonus episode on Halloween of real life experiences on the spooky side from myself and some other people in our lives that are willing to share. We know that a lot of us have some spooky stories, but may not be open enough and vulnerable enough to share to the public. That's okay. So we are looking forward to getting a little spooky with you on Halloween. And I'd love to call for action as a countdown and invite you to share some spooky stories with us via Instagram or TikTok. And we'd love to share them with our community to get us amped up for Halloween in that spooky season. Hee hee. Victoria's like, oh, spooky. No, I'm kidding.
Thank God I'm really good at tuning people out when they talk. I'm just kidding. I'm
Yes,
totally
come
kidding.
on as a guest to Frequency Broads, and Victoria will completely tune you out. That's the spook of it.
Well, I half listen.
Ain't that the truth?
It's called situational listening. I'm just kidding.
I think that's it for us, pals.
I think
I think
so
we've hit the
too.
wall. I'm ready to go watch a spooky movie and then follow it up with a Disney movie because that's how you change your frequency, bitch.
It's practical magic for me, baby.
Don't even get me started. I love practical magic so much.
Jimmy Angel Love.
Someone left it on the porch. Can we have a margarita night? Put the lime in the
In the
coconut.
coconut.
Mm.
Oh, oh.
All right. You know what? Maybe for the bonus episode, we make a little spooky margaritas.
Yes.
Okay, shit. I'll see you in a couple days, bitch.
Love you. Thank
We love you
you.
guys. Happy spooky season.